This is big breaking news. Multiple events going on tonight happening starting midnight. We are going to see major changes inside the US, and we're also going to see natural events occurring as well. You could potentially see aurora all the way down in Oregon and Washington due to a geomagnetic storm hitting tonight as well too. So lots of news. Let's get into all the details. You guys can see this announcement was just made by Transportation Secretary Sean Duffy. He is warning that starting tonight at midnight, major changes are coming in place at America's top airports and airlines. All right, this is big and this is concerning. This is going to affect commerce, and this shutdown is also affecting crop production and crop planning, and also disaster loans for farmers right now too. So even the USDA farm loans are being affected from this. Transportation's being affected. We're going to dive into all those details, and you guys can see here as well that a G3 quote strong geomagnetic storm is hitting Earth tonight as well too. A strong watch is for November 6th and 7th. And it says here a coronal mass ejection is an eruption of solar material and magnetic fields. When they arrive at Earth, a geomagnetic storm can result. And it says here expectation, a CME is anticipated to reach and impact Earth with elevated geomagnetic response, and dependent upon orientation of the embedded magnetic fields, the potential exists for strong storm levels. And it says here effects, you could see limited minor effects to some technological infrastructure possible, but usually mitigatable. The aurora may become visible over many of the northern states and some of the lower Midwest states to Oregon. The general public should consider monitoring web pages for the latest information and updates. All right, so you can see here, this was just put out Wednesday, November 5th by NOAA. And you can see here, this was a couple days ago when the sunspot actually erupted from the sun. It was a X-class solar flare. All right, we will get into more details of that. But if you are in the lower states, the upper states, then you could see potentially aurora tonight. You can see this video here showing you some of the potential places where you can see it. All right, that lower band of green there has a low potential, maybe 10 to 30% chance of seeing it there. All right, and especially if you're in Alaska, you have a 90% chance most likely of seeing it in a lot of areas. All right, so something to be aware of tonight. It might be cool to see if it's not too cloudy where you're at. Make sure you're looking north. And as always with these storms, there could be potential problems with the power grid, with the phone systems, with the satellites. All right, these things are affected by this geomagnetic incursion, and we could potentially see disruptions to those things. Most likely minor, but it could happen. So be prepared for that too. Be stocked up. Just make sure you have these considerations in your preps. All right, if the power goes out, if systems go down, if telecommunications go down, just be ready and have backups for these things. All right, let's get into what's going on as well too in the country. Starting at midnight, we're going to see a 10% reduction in air traffic. All right, they're shutting down air traffic across the country, and this is unprecedented. We've never seen this. This is the longest shutdown in history, so we've never actually seen the side effects of a shutdown that's this long. All right, and we are now seeing it. Air traffic controllers are calling out like crazy because they are now officially missing paychecks, and this is going to continue to get worse. This is also affecting crop production as well too. Winter wheat production is not being able to be planted at its full capacity. All right, it's mostly at capacity, but some smaller to mid-level farms are struggling to get financing for their winter wheat production, and also some farms in the south like Florida and California and very southern regions of the US where they can grow during winter time things like tomatoes and other crops. Those farms are also being affected. We'll get into more details of that, but let's listen to this really quick.
Our air traffic controllers and a lot of those who work at DOT, but throughout government, they haven't received paychecks. And many of these employees, they're the head of household. They have their spouse at home. They have a child or two or three. And when they lose income, they are confronted with real world difficulties in how they pay their bills. And so for air traffic controllers, they received a partial payment in early October. The second payment, they got a big fat zero, no paycheck at all. Tomorrow, they get a pay stub email on what their next paycheck is going to be. And when that pay stub comes out, that is also going to be zero. So they will have gone a month without any pay. And what we're finding is that our air traffic controllers, because of the financial pressures at home, are taking side jobs. They need to put food on the table, gas in the car, pay their bills. By the way, I do not want them to take side jobs. I want them to show up for work. We have asked them to show up for work, but I'm not naive to understand that they're trying to figure out how they meet their daily obligations. And so because of that, we have seen staffing pressures throughout our airspace. Those who travel will see that we've had more delays. We've had more cancellations. We do not want to see disruptions at the FAA or here at DOT. We don't want that. But our number one priority is to make sure when you travel safely. And that's why, as the administrator and I have been talking throughout the day, his team has been working for the last 24, 36, 48 hours crunching data. We're noticing that there's additional pressure that's building in the system. And again, our priority is to make sure that you're safe. And so we're going to talk about additional measures that we are going to take that's going to reduce the risk profile in the national airspace. And I'm going to turn it over to the administrator to do that as he walks through what that plan is going to look like. I anticipate there will be additional disruptions. There will be frustration. We are working with the airlines. They're going to work with passengers. But in the end, our sole role is to make sure that we keep this airspace as safe as possible. The administrator is going to talk about all of the tools we're going to deploy. One of them, though, is going to be that there is going to be a 10% reduction in capacity at 40 of our locations. The administrator is going to tell you that this is data-based. This is not based on what airline travels, has more flights out of what location. This is about where is the pressure and how do we alleviate the pressure. And so I want to thank him for, again, him and his team's great work.
All right, so you heard that there. They're reducing airspace by 10% at these major airports, most of which are international airports, 40 different airports. Here's the list just so you guys know. If you're traveling, holiday season's coming up, and this could extend into November or until the end of November to potentially December. They're saying past Thanksgiving. Here are the 40 airports being affected: Anchorage International, Hartsfield Jackson, Atlanta International, Boston Logan International, Baltimore Washington, Charlotte Douglas, Cincinnati Northern Kentucky International, Dallas Love, Ronald Reagan Washington, Denver International, Dallas Fort Worth, Detroit Metropolitan Wayne County Airport, Newark Liberty International, Fort Lauderdale Hollywood, Honolulu International, Houston Hobby, Washington Duluth International, George Bush Houston Intercontinental, Indianapolis International, New York or JFK New York, John F. Kennedy International, Las Vegas McCarran, LAX Los Angeles, New York LaGuardia, Orlando International, Chicago Midway, Memphis, Miami, Minneapolis St. Paul International, Oakland International, Ontario, Chicago O'Hare, Portland International, Philadelphia, Phoenix Sky Harbor, San Diego International, Louisville International, Seattle, Tacoma, San Francisco, Salt Lake City International, Teterboro, and Tampa International airports are all being affected from this 10% reduction, okay? And that's at least 10%. It looked like some of them potentially are at more percent, maybe 10 to 20%, and then the other ones are just at 10%, okay? So this is going to affect the supply chain. This is going to affect businesses, okay? They're not going to get those economic tourist dollars. It's going to be diminished. It's going to affect the supply chain in the sense that a lot of items are shipped through air travel, especially high priority items, okay, are shipped through the mail that need to be shipped quickly. And this could have snowballs effects, okay? If one business isn't getting their stuff, then the business that buys from them isn't getting their stuff too. All right, and then now that it creates a, chain reaction where there's one, break in the chain, kink in the chain with the shipping department, with air travel, and that causes delays for everyone else, okay? And then it also puts more stress on ground shipments. Now they are making up for it, okay? So everyone's going to get squeezed from this, okay? And even the farmers are being squeezed from this. It's being reported that farmers from the Midwest to Georgia, their winter wheat production it's relatively stable, but the smaller to mid-sized farms are not getting access to this funding because the FSA, the Farm Service Agency, and the USDA have been shut down. These loan programs are on hold. When there's a government shutdown, there's also rural housing loans and things along those lines that are all put on hold and shut down during this government shutdown, right? So people's lives are being affected in multiple different ways, and this could even affect the food supply chain, right? And especially farmers that are in emergency situations, or they had a bad year, they had a crop failure, or some type of natural disaster. There was flooding in their area. There's been a ton of flooding this year. Or there was a tornado, some type of bad storm, something along these lines, or a fire. All right, if they are trying to make these claims before the end of the year to get their money, then these systems are all shut down. Okay, so a lot of times payments for farmer loans are done on a yearly basis. So instead of paying the mortgage every single month, sometimes they do it every month, but a lot of the times they pay it every year when the crop sells, or when they get their money from, selling the animals or whatever it is, okay? Because a lot of farmers, they grow the crop for the season, and then they sell everything at once, and they make all their money kind of in one time, essentially. So then they will pay the mortgage for the whole year. And it's kind of that time of year, right? It's been shut down all October, and which is like harvest season, and it's still shut down into November. So a lot of these farms that had crop failures or some type of disaster are not going to be able to access these emergency loans and funds that the USDA and FSA does provide, and it's life-saving for a lot of these farmers. Okay, so things like that will be affected. Potentially some smaller to mid-sized farms might even go out of business because they can't. Larger farms will most likely have access to other forms of credit, like private loans, things like that, but a lot of the smaller farms do depend heavily on FSA and USDA loans and support because they can't get those private loans yet. All right, they're just like not at the level where they're giving them, millions of dollars for their soybeans or whatever. It's just not there yet. And that's mostly how these private farm lenders operate. They operate just on a larger scale, and they typically don't help, they do if they qualify, but a lot of these small family farms and things like that don't typically qualify. So let me know what you guys think down below. Hope you guys are staying safe, staying prepared, staying stocked up. I hope you have big blessings for your life and your family, and I hope you have a big old blessed day.